Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Friday around 1 in the afternoon here in Woodmere, New York. I'll be spending Shabbat here in the area, in Youngage of Woodmere. I'll be as well speaking in IPM and as well as Rabbi Polakov Shul as well. Aberstein, how are ya? So this week's a little bit of a strange grill and Torah for me. Obviously, I'm not home. And there's no grill, but we definitely will have Torah going on. We're going to be discussing one of the, for me at least, something that really bothered me since I was very young. This whole story about the Ori, what's going on, the whole story about the Meraglim, the spies of Israel that did what they did. We're going to discuss exactly what they did and what their mistake was or their sin was, and why is it that specifically this action, I appreciate Yosef, thanks, why this action has caused really one of the most painful experiences for the Jewish nation. In other words, I've said this time before and I'll say it again, the golden calf, which was pure idol worship, that golden calf we actually got, we were forgiven for. We know that, hey Judith, how are ya? Hey Rachel. We know that on Yom Kippur, Keith, we know that on Yom Kippur, God said, Salachti Kidvarecha. Moshe Rabbeinu asked for forgiveness. Hey Paulina, how are you? And on Yom Kippur, we got forgiveness for it. But for the spies, we've never gotten forgiveness for it. It's the only, in fact, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the spies' sin is the only sin that we have never actually received forgiveness for. Jason, what's going on? All is good, thank God. And the question has to be asked, what was it that the spies did? Number one, that was so bad. And number two, that merited such a reaction from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, from God, that it really is the only sin in the Torah of Bnei Israel, of the nation of Israel, that was never given. Where in Woodmere are you? I'm right now on Peninsula. I will be tonight in the Youngage of Woodmere. Tomorrow I'll be in IPM for Shacharit. And then Mincha, I'll be speaking to Rabbi Polakov Shul here in the area. So we're going to discuss that. Here we go. So everyone who's on, welcome. And everyone can invite their friends and family. And we're going to talk about this. So, hey Brian, what's going on? The question is the following. You know, the nation of Israel was in the desert. It was in slavery for 210 years. They didn't even know what independence meant. They were completely reliant and in an abusive way on the Egyptians. Is there any sound, people? Give me a thumbs up if there's sound. I don't know. Someone said there's no sound, so if anyone doesn't hear it, if you hear me, give me a thumbs up so I know that. Yosef, I'll be in Jersey Monday. If you're signing in, I appreciate everyone signing in. Please give a share. And if you are signing in, yeah, very clear. Okay, thanks. Good. All right. So we were talking about the spies and why that specific avera, that specific sin, was so harsh. In other words, we know that idol worship, the golden calf, we were given forgiveness for. So what is it about the spies who spoke badly about the land of Israel, let's say, even the people in Israel, that we merited being punished for 2,000 years now, more, 3,000 years now? So let's think about what the spies did for 1 second. Remember, the nation of Israel was in slavery for 210 years. And Gracie, by the way, if you don't mind, get me the link for the campaign on the Standing Together site. We'll put it on here. So the nation of Israel was in slavery for 210 years. We had our children murdered by Paro's, regime, and we were in slavery, beaten and hit and whatnot, for 210 years. 2 centuries of slavery with not any taste of independence. And then God takes us out from that place of slavery and brings us into the desert. And the desert, obviously, is the most desolate area. There's no hope there. The view doesn't change. There's no different, they're green and red. It's all brown. There's no water. And then God says to the nation of Israel, I'm going to bring you into a country, into a land called the land of Israel, and you're going to go take it over. Now, any normal people, first thing they want to do when they go into a land is find out how to take over the land. In other words, the IDF today, obviously, when we have to go into an operations, we do our research and we decide how we go about, the operation that we have to go about. So the idea of sending spies is not such a bad thing. In other words, the nation of Israel wanted to know how do they go in. So these 12 spies went, and this is a big mistake people make, by the way. 12 spies were not simplemen. They were not simpletons. They were not, uneducated. They weren't. They had full knowledge. They were the leaders. They were the rabbis of the generation. And 10 leaders came back and said, we should not go into the land of Israel. And 2 came back and said, yes, we should. So the 2 that came back said, yes, we should, obviously, Kalev ben Yefuneh and Yoshua ben Nun. And the other 10 said no. And again, the question is, what is the big deal? What is the big deal that 10 of the greatest rabbis of that generation came back and said, listen, we can't do it. There are too many mountains. There are people who are giants there. We can't get the walled cities. And what was the big deal? Well, let's look what happened when they went into the land of Israel. When the 10 spies went into the land of Israel, what did they check? They checked the security situation. They checked the topography. They checked which is the best way to attack and whatnot. And, hey, Rita, how are you? And when the 2 spies went, Yoshua and Kalev, what did they do? Well, Kalev went to the burial of his forefathers, went to Hebron to see the burial place of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In other words, the whole mindset of the spies were different in that way. The 10 spies went in and said, well, let's check the security situation. But the question has to be asked those 10 spies, did you get out of Egypt after you checked the security situation? Did you see the 10 plagues after you checked the security situation? Did you survive in the desert after you checked the security situation? Did you see the splitting of the sea after you checked the security situation? Did you see the Egyptians killed as they were running after you checked the security situation? So the question has to be asked of these 10 spies. Throughout the time that you were in Egypt, you survived not because of technical reasons, because, the Egyptians were only killing the boys and then only the girls. No. You didn't survive because of your technical information, because of your security information, because of your know-how. You survived by the grace of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the great grace of God. And now God says, I'm bringing you into your home, and you want to check the security situation? You want to see if you can do it? Well, were you able to get out of Egypt on your own? So the 10 spies, it wasn't a matter of checking how to go into the country. They all of a sudden said, well, we can do this, but we can do this. We have to figure out how we can do this. God's in your corner, you have to check the security situation. The other 2 spies, Yoshua and Kalev, had a different mindset. They weren't going to check how to get into the land. They were going to check something much deeper. They were going to check the belonging to the land, the land's yearning for us. Going to check our connection back, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And when the spies came back, and the 10 spies said, well, we can't do this. Technically, we can't get in. Kalev said, what are you talking about? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rachel, and Leah, we went to their burial place, right? Rachel's buried in Beit Lechem. What are you worrying about technical details? This is our land. But the 10 spies were much more practical than that. And they said, whoa, we live in this world, we're here. We can't take over the land of Israel now. And it was the mindset of the spies that went in. In other words, the sin was not that they spoke badly about the land of Israel at the time, or about the people of Israel, who weren't even Jewish at the time. They were challenging Kadosh Baruch Hu's abilities. They were challenging God's abilities. God says, Alul Shutar, let's go up and take over the land. That's it. Well, I didn't ask you to check if we could or we couldn't. Again, you woke up this morning, you took a breath, your heart's pumping. Did you check your pulse all night long? In other words, at a certain point in our lifetime, sometimes we forget that we are not in charge. We forget that we have to be thankful and appreciative of every second that we have in this life. So yeah, of course we use doctors. Of course we go to the doctors. But at the end of the day, you wake up in the morning, your heart's pumping, and you got a pulse, and you're breathing. So you got to make sure you got to keep yourself healthy. But fact of the matter is you're not in charge. You didn't keep your heart pumping all night long. It was automatic. You weren't thinking every second of the night, well, is my heart pumping? Is my heart pumping? No. So the spies, their sin was they basically betrayed HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They betrayed God. In other words, after everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, brought us through, from surviving Mitzrayim, from the Esel Makot, 10 plagues, to the Tziat Mitzrayim, redemption out of Egypt, to the splitting of the sea. What did you check? The Earth's plates and how they should move at the split. What are you talking about? And the other, hey Deborah, how are you? The other two, Kalev and Yoshua, they had no doubt. So if they're already going to the land of Israel, they're going to visit their forefathers. They're going to visit Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They're going to visit Yosef Tzaddik and Shem. They're going to. Because it's not a matter of whether I can. It's realizing the yearning, realizing the dream that you're about to take part of, and that's what the difference in mindset between Kalev and Yoshua and the other 10 spies were. Now, Judaism does not believe in jumping into hot water and say, "Oh, it'll be okay." We don't believe it. There's a funny story of a guy who was in the ocean drowning, and very religious man, very religious, and he's saying, "God, please save me." And the Coast Guard comes by, and the Coast Guard, says, "Hey, are you okay?" And he says, "I'm all right. Go away. I'm waiting for God." Coast Guard leaves. Then a yacht comes in, full like these cruise ships, and honks their horn, "Man overboard, man overboard." And says, "Are you okay?" He says, "Go away. I'm waiting for God to save me." Right? The cruise ship leaves. Then a fisherman's boat comes, a simple fisherman's boat. And the man thinks to himself, "Well, I didn't take the Coast Guard. I didn't take the cruise ship. I'm going to take a stupid fisherman boat over God. Go away." So the boat leaves, and a couple of days go by, and the guy dies. And he gets up to heaven. He says, "God, I don't understand. I had so much faith in you. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And I really did mean it." And he did. And God says to him, "I don't understand. I sent you the Coast Guard. I sent you a cruise ship. I sent you a fisherman boat. Why didn't you get on?" "I was waiting for you." So the idea is we're not waiting for miracles. We're not waiting for, no, things are happening in this world. But we have to realize that everything that happens is actually a miracle. Again, you took a breath, Baruch Hashem, and Hashem, thank God I'm breathing. And so the mindset of the Meraglim was different. And the sin was that the 10 Meraglim, who were the greatest of the leaders of the generation, did not understand the current situation that they were in, the miraculous situation that they were in. They didn't get it. They'd have the ability to get it. Kalev and Yoshua, it was clear. They had clarity on this issue. And so therefore, and by the way, Yoshua did not speak to the nation. Kalev went out screaming, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I think that the message is clear. On the one hand, yes, we have to do things to make sure things work in life in an order, right? You have to get an education, to get a job, right? You have to bring means home to the family. That's all important stuff that has to be done. But when you get a good job, and when you're bringing money home, do you forget what the real source is? Do we forget what the real source is? That's the question. And I think that the lesson from the spies is exactly that. Whatever you're doing in life, you're supposed to do things, you're supposed to behave and live life the way it's supposed to be lived according to what a Kadosh Baruch Hu says. But every step of the way, when we succeed, we have to say thank God. And when we fail, we should be saying, well, there's a reason for it. I don't know what the reason is. We don't know what the reason. You cannot say, I know what the reason is. But we should know that everything is up to God. And my grandfather, my father's side, my grandparents left Germany after Kristallnacht. They were breaking all the windows of the shuls and the synagogues and the yeshivot and the stores. And he had a ring on his finger that said, Gam Zula Tova. This is also for the good. We don't know what the reason is. We don't know what the reason is for things, but we know the source. And so the lesson to learn is that, whatever life throws you, whether it's good or bad, and the Gemara talks about this, that today there are two kinds of blessings. When something good happens, we say, Baruch HaTov v'Metiv, thank God for the good things. And when there are bad things happen, we say, Baruch Dayan HaEmet. We say, bless the ultimate judge. In other words, we don't know the reason for the bad things, but there's a reason for it. And I can't explain it. It says, in the world to come, there'll only be one bracha, Baruch HaTov v'Metiv. Because even when bad things happen, we'll understand the reason that it's not happening. This for me is a very, very it was a difficult lesson because when my friend who was, I've spoken about many times before, Yoshua Friedrich was killed in 1993. My platoon mate was kidnapped and killed. So I was extremely angry. And, one of the rabbis there said there's a reason for everything. At the time, it wasn't a smart thing to do. I punched him in the face. And then after he says, what are you so angry about? What are you so angry about? I said, what do you mean, what am I angry about? The guy, Shua was, he became religious on his own. He brought his whole family back to be more traditional. He was engaged. He made Aliyah in years that when war was going on and people were running away from Israel, he did everything right. And he had to be killed by terrorists. And he looks, he says, what's your problem? And I was going to punch him again. So what does he mean? He says, are you upset that he was killed, or are you upset you don't understand why he was killed? And even in my anger, I shook my head and I said, I want to know why he was killed. He says, okay, so it's the reason, not the fact that he was killed. Everyone dies, right? He was killed instantly after he was shot point blank 4 times to the heart. He was killed instantly. What are you upset about? I was like, why? He says, the why question bothers you. Not the what happened. Not in terms of the fact that he died. Because at that point, I could not fathom the idea why this would happen. So we don't know the reason for things in life, but we have to keep our eye on the ball, and we have to keep, really keep things in focus. And when good things happen, we really have to realize that it was the source from, God. And when bad things happen, we have to realize there's a reason for it. And even if we don't understand, we have to keep strong. So I think that the bottom line, the lesson for the Allison, Shalom, Allison, how are you? The lesson that we learned from the Meraglim is that it's all about mindset. It's all about how you look at life and how you portray life and how you act upon whatever life is giving you. And the bottom line is the Meraglim, the 10 Meraglim, they were looking at the whole job that they had in an incorrect fashion. Kadosh Baruch Hu, God said to them, Alul Shudai, let's go up and capture the land. And they went, well, how? Let's see if we can do it. I don't know. And by the way, nothing would have been bad if they wouldn't have added in that one word, Ephes. Ephes. When they spoke about the land badly and they would have said, let's go up and take care of it, it would have been great. But they said, this is the problem, that's the problem, this is the problem. And Ephes, that word Ephes, we can't do this. And more than that, they said, Kechagavim, we're like grasshoppers in the eyes of those people. How could you call the nation of Israel, who was just redeemed out of Egypt by miracles, by God, how could you call us grasshoppers? How could you even have that coming out of your mouth? This was a problem. Kalev ben Yefuneh and Yoshua ben Nun, they went to visit the grave sites of the fathers. And of course not going to Kechagavim, Avram Avinu Kechagav. Never had that come out of his mouth. He realized with him, he realized the mindset of what the Meraglim are going for. It's not about technically how to go into Israel, it's the fact that we're going in and realizing the dream. And I think we have to, for our own lives, we have to realize that same thing. Now I'm just going to tell you one short story and I'm going to finish up. And of course, I'm going to ask everyone to please join me with the Standing Together site. I'm here for 2 weeks, away from the family, away from Israel. And I would love, what I'm worried about is raising the funds that I need to raise for the soldiers. And so everybody listening, as soon as I'm done, I put the link right down there right now. If you would please hit that link and do whatever you can. So I once heard from the Radziner Hasidic sect that Hasidim went to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and they came back. The Rebbe says to them, how's the land of Israel? He said, the land is beautiful. But the Jews there, they're not so religious. And from what I understand from the story, the rabbi turned red with anger. He said, how dare you? He said, what's the problem? He says, the Meraglim, the 10 spies, went to Israel. Who did they speak about? They spoke about the people in the land of Israel at the time. And they were Israel's enemies. And you're talking badly about Jews in the land of Israel? How dare you? Words have tremendous power, both for positive as well as for negative. And we have to be very careful. We have to be very, very careful with how we talk and what we do. And the Meraglim choose, again, just the words, and Bnei Yisrael, the nation of Israel, instead of leaving the 2 of the 12 who realized what they've been through over the last, since coming out of Mitzrayim, they went to their tents and they were crying. And why were they crying? They were crying because they took the advice of 10 of the greatest rabbis, by the way, who said, technically we can't take over the land of Israel. you understand? People who survived Egypt, people went through the splitting of the sea. Now, say technically we can take over the land of Israel. When God says, I'm going to let you go up into the land of Israel, total lack of faith in a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That was the sin. The Chet HaEgel, the golden calf, that wasn't a sin out of lack of faith. Moshe Rabbeinu was up in Har Sinai. Bnei Yisrael thought he died. They wanted a connection with God. So they built this golden calf for the connection with God. Yes, they made a mistake and they said, El Elokech Yisrael, the Aaron says, this is your God. But the whole source for building that Egel was to connect up to God. The whole source for the Chet HaMeraglim was to disconnect from God. And again, you can't do Avodah Zarah, you can't do idol worship to connect up to God. It's wrong also. But the point is, you can get forgiveness for the Chet HaEgel. Because at the end of the day, Yom Kippur, we come to Shul and we daven, we pray for forgiveness. But when it comes to the Chet HaMeraglim, that's an ongoing sin of talking badly, certain about Eretz Yisrael, about the people in Eretz Yisrael. It's lack of faith. It's worrying about technical details. And again, you have to set everything up in life correct. In other words, they could have gone and said, we should attack from here. We should go up to the land of Israel from here. We should take care of this. Or that they could have done. We have to know the details. We have to be ready to do things right. But if you are meant to do something, never let the details get in the way. Never let the details get in the way. And I think that's what the Meraglim are teaching us. All right, so those of you who are here, just to let you know, I am this weekend in Woodmere. I will be davening tonight in Young Israel of Woodmere. And then tomorrow in the morning, I'll be davening the IPM Minyan. And then in the afternoon, I'll be speaking to Rabbi Palakov's shul here on Peninsula Boulevard, I think. And then I am going to Sunday. We're having a big breakfast here in Woodmere. If you're in the area, send me a private message. I'll give you the details, the address and whatnot. Sunday morning at 9:30. Amazing breakfast we're going to have here. And then the rest of the week, I'm hopefully coming into Manhattan to have some individual meetings, as well as other people around the tri-state area. And then on Wednesday, I'm off to Florida. We're going to have a great meeting in Boca, and then another one in Hollywood. And then I'm coming back to the Hamptons, and I still have 2 days, the 26th and the 27th and 28th rather. I still have open. Definitely looking to make some individual meetings. And people, I haven't been back. I've been back here in a year, but I'm saying definitely looking to reintroduce myself to the old town. So anybody wants to get together wherever I'll be, just send me a private message and let's do it. All right. Wishing everyone a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom from Woodmere, New York. Next week I will be in the Hamptons, and then we will be going home, sweet home, the week after that. Wishing everyone a beautiful weekend. Shabbat Shalom to all from Woodmere, New York.